Hey, it's Mazzy, and welcome to another ranking video. This is Pink Floyd, the Pink Floyd collection. This is one of the cases where I'm showing all the records because they only had 15 studio records. Now, I'm not including any live records or comps, but as an introduction, I really want to talk about this book. This is a book by Hipgnosis. It's called Vinyl Album Cover Art, the Complete Hipgnosis Catalog. Hipgnosis, Storm Thurgeson, the late Storm Thurgeson, and Aubrey Powell, integral part of the design and image of Pink Floyd for most of the records. I'll talk about that a little bit as I go through. Those of you who watched my channel before probably know as a photo agent, I'm very interested in photography, art, and design, and the aesthetics is an important part of records for me, releases and the image of a band and the mood of an album for me. Although, having said that, I'm not using the design, the cover art, to calculate my list, going back from number 15 to number 1. As I've said before, in every single one of these ranking videos, there is a playlist so you can see all of them I've done so far. These are my favorite in the moment right now, going back from 15 to number 1. It's a subjective thing. If you have different, put your suggestions in there. I'm not wrong, you're not wrong. Just a different take on things. I'm coming from just a perspective, not better, but just different, that I'm a first generation where, except for one instance here, I bought all these albums pretty much right when they came out. So I grew up with these records, and so they affected me at different times in my life, obviously going back to 1967, 68, and to the last few years. So without further ado, we'll jump on this, and I'm going to go backwards. Number 15. Number 15 almost seems like it's conceptual because I don't have it. I don't have it anymore. I got rid of it at some point. And I think it's possibly the worst record in their catalog. Some will argue for several reasons, but it's the final cut. It's the last album Roger Waters was on, and it was sort of piecemeal together, some leftovers, as I recall, from The Wall, and it's a fucking mess as far as I'm concerned. So to me, that makes it a disappointment. Now, you might say some of the other hybrid albums are worse. I don't agree. And as I get into this, you'll kind of see where I'm coming from in my taste. So I don't have it to show. The final cut, Maggie Thatcher, there you go. So that's number 15 right off the bat. You don't see anything, which is kind of in a great way conceptually interesting to start off this ranking video. Number 14, The Endless River, or what I call Pink Floyd's music middle of the road record album. Pink Floyd's Windham Hill record, if you know what I'm talking about with Windham Hill. It's like the remaining two members, Nick Mason and David Gilmour's wife, working on the lyrics here. Phil Manzanera is co-produced in Youth and Annie Jackson. So it's a collaboration, and it's really interesting. I think there's only one song with vocals. It's mainly instrumental, so it has that massage-like music atmosphere of it. Again, beautiful packaging, beautiful cover art, and I can never take that away. The late great. It's a mood piece, and I love that they did this. And to me, there's that whole argument that people have: should you call these things a Pink Floyd record? Should you call the last several Who albums a Who album? But you got Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey left, so that's subjective. A lot of us who are into like a band, and Pink Floyd is amongst my favorite bands, so I do love them. And there's parts of this album I enjoy, but when I pull together 15 records, this is number 14. Number 13, and amongst my favorite album covers, this cover, The Division Bell. This is problematic as well. There's some great stuff on it. Again, all the records sound wonderful. This is almost a record that I could just have the cover and that could be it. I can be pleased. I don't know what else to say about this record. Again, great packaging, great imaging. Division bell, I'm not going to say anymore. And I know I'm going to get criticized for that, because if I'm going to dig deep into these records, hey, so be it. Number 12. This could be rated higher in some ways, because I do like I mean, I like all these records. So number 12 is a soundtrack, is More. One of two soundtracks I think I have on this list. This is an interesting record. This is an early record. This is from a Barbette Schroeder film. Really interesting and great film director. It's moody, it's atmospheric, a lot of Waters cuts. In fact, most of side one is written by, except for two pieces, written by Roger Waters, and side two is a collective of the whole band. So it's dramatic themes, it's you know, blues themes, spatial themes. Interesting record. I picked this up. Now, a lot of these records, except for those last few, so I bought these when they came out. This was on Tower Records in this country, not to be confused with the retail chain Tower Records. More soundtrack coming in number 12. Now this record, a lot of people love to hate this record. It's coming in number 11 is Umaguma. I call it Umaguma. Some say Umaguma. I think it's Umaguma. A fantastic cover. I remember buying this right when it came out, because there was a time when record companies would have these double albums, but they'd be not much more, I think maybe $1 more than a single record. Of course, this record is one record of live music and one record where it's split into quarters and each band taking on a quarter. So somewhat pretentious. But I have like some stories about this, why this record is interesting and still means a lot to me. I remember buying this record. I was 15 years old when this came out. I was at a friend's house who had an older brother, and there was a couple people over there, maybe 5 or 6 people, and we had a sleepover, and I was 15. So I was a teenager. Several of the people there took peyote and played this record over and over again, literally one record all night long. And I think one of the first times I remember staying up all night. I did not take any drugs. They were on peyote, and I kind of really got into this record, and especially the Roger Waters sections. Grantchester Meadows, which to me is a beautiful atmospheric folk song with birds and nature, insect pieces, and several species of a small furry animals gathered together in a cave and grooving with a pict, which is this bizarre audio sort of montage, which was a big part of Pink Floyd's sound forever, and especially it was getting into this sort of psychedelic sound effect meandering, and I mean meandering in the best of ways. I remember hearing that, and I just fell in love with that. I was making audio recordings for myself and using these two Roger Waters songs. The Nick Mason drumming stuff, and even the Richard Wright stuff, and even David Gilmour stuff is not very interesting in my opinion on this. The live stuff's great. Astronomy Domain, the Syd Barrett song from their early album, Careful What That Axe Eugene. I really, and obviously Set the Controls of the Heart of the Sun, and this is an interesting album. Again, at this point, it just makes number 11 for me, but because it is problematic, and it's a hard record for people to get into Pink Floyd. Obviously, if you're into the live stuff, that one LP here is tremendous. Great. I'd say ultimately it fails, but it's still a good record. And so this is my introduction to being around a drug-infused evening, not being on psychedelics. Pink Floyd, Umaguma. And of course, I mean, come on, when you're a gearhead and you sit and look through all this stuff, the way the entire thing is composed of the music of them. And there you go. Okay, we're getting in our top 10 now. Number 10. It's the one record in this particular ranking that I don't have on vinyl, but I have on compact disc. And this is A Momentary Lapse of Reason. This is from one of the box sets that came out on compact disc. This record has some issues, but it has that great, Learning to Fly, which was all over MTV, and I think is a beautiful atmospheric song. It's one of the more commercial, but it's really majestic. And I do like this record a lot. I should pick up a vinyl copy of it at some point, but I do like this. This is number 10 for me. It is, I believe this is the first album Roger Waters was not on. There was some legal issues happening with the rights to the name of Pink Floyd. It's problematic, but I actually really like it a lot. And, I had to put this in front of Umaguma because it's more listenable than Umaguma. Umaguma might be an important album, transition album, problematic to some people. I'm going back to that here. But this is a really interesting album, A Momentary Lapse of Reason by Pink Floyd. Number 9, Saucer Full of Secrets. This is the second Pink Floyd album. This is the album where Syd Barrett started having issues, mental issues, drug issues, so much so that David Gilmour was brought on and was basically the new member replacing. Basically, it was just one day when they were going to a show, when they were going to a performance, they brought on David Gilmour and they just decided not to go and pick up Syd Barrett. This is a really cool record. Obviously, there's the camp of the Syd Barrett versus the rest of Pink Floyd, which I don't think is a fair, but they were a different band. But, there's elements here of Saucer Full of Secrets, obviously. Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun, which is a Roger Waters song, which is a beautiful explosion of psychedelia, which is really interesting. Again, this is from 1968, produced by Norman Smith, who had produced their first album, but not their first single. That was produced by Joe Boyd prior to their signing with EMI. But this is a great record. This is the first record Hypnosis worked on the cover. And somewhere in here, there's sort of a, here we go, there's a Captain Marvel, as I recall, psychedelia of the comic book. Really great album. Again, on Tower Records. I got this when it came out on Tower Records. I didn't know what quite to make of it. It wasn't my favorite record at the time, but it's grown in stature for me. But it's number 9 in this catalog. Now number 8. Number 8. I'm going to get flack for this record, not because people don't love it, but because people love it too much, in my opinion. I mean, I'm in the minority here on this record, and number 8 is The Wall. To this is, I think to many people probably watching here, this is your number 1, 2, or 3 album by Pink Floyd, the double album, a majestic album, overambitious album. Roger Waters is on here. I'm usually not one of those kind of people that says, it should have been a single album. But this is the transition for me with Roger Waters and his voice when he started doing that screaming thing. And it just irritated me so much. Now, magnificent record. This was the 3rd time I saw Pink Floyd on this tour, the Wall Tour. An amazing tour, wonderful tour. Again, another cover by the great Hypnosis. Important record, tells a story. It's pretty much Roger Waters' baby. I think there's some amazing songs on it. Some amazing work on this. I could edit it down, but I know, and again, it's kind of like Quadrophenia for me. The Wall and Quadrophenia are the 2 most overrated double albums. And again, kick me down for that, baby. I have no problem with that. But coming in number 8, The Wall by Pink Floyd. Coming at number 7, and this is the 2nd time I saw them live, and this is Animals. This is a really interesting record because coming after Wish You Were Here, this almost seemed like their indie sounding album, as if it's their White Album, where it's almost lo-fi. I know it's not lo-fi, but the way it's split up, the way it's recorded, it's not as large as The Wall would be, or even going back to Echoes or Dark Side of the Moon. I think this is a brilliant album. This is probably tied for my favorite Pink Floyd cover. Of course, there's the Battersea Power Station, the Beatle connection there, since if you watch my videos, I try to put a Beatle connection in when I can. In the movie Help, they shut down the power at the Battersea Circuit's Battersea Power Station off the Thames in London. The whole story, you should read and research about the pig. That's actually not retouched in. They flew this pig over London and it got loose and escaped. This is a great record. This is an intimate record, more lo-fi, as I said, some folky stuff on it, but I think it's such a brilliant album. Coming in number 6, Atom Heart Mother. This is probably, as I said, tied with Animals for my number 1 album. I think this is a brilliant album cover. Originally didn't have the name. I have copies with Pink Floyd across the top. What a great album cover. So graphic, so minimal, so beautiful. I love their version. I mean, this is the version of Atom Heart Mother with this whole horn orchestration, which is so dramatic and so orchestrated and so stunningly beautiful. If is a gorgeous sort of introspective song by Waters. It ends up with Alan's Psychedelic Breakfast, who was their roadie, I believe. And it's kind of a fun little aural sensation piece. So, Pink Floyd's Atom Heart Mother. Okay, we're now at the top 5 Pink Floyd albums for my personal ranking. Number 5 is Obscured by Clouds, 1972. It's a soundtrack to another Barbet Schroeder film called La Vallée. I did see the film about 20 years after the fact. Interesting film, a bit surreal, but of mudmen and discovery, and interesting film. But of course, for me, the music is the hero. I bought this album in 1972 when it came out, and I literally fell in love with this record. I think this is possibly their most underrated record in the catalog. It's one of their brilliant records. I think it's concise. It's not bloated. I like it better than The Wall. It's got some surreal, atmospheric music. It's got some catchy songs like Free 4, a great song that Roger Waters wrote. But it's just really, really a cool film. Childhood's End, David Gilmour song. Beautiful record. Coming in number 5, Pink Floyd's Obscured by Clouds, soundtrack to the motion picture La Vallée. Coming in number 4, the great debut album, one of the great debut albums. Now, what I said earlier, I did not get this album when it came out. I didn't get this record till probably 1970 for some reason. This is the UK version, slightly different track list. Of course, it ends up with a great, fun song by Barrett, and that's Syd Barrett's song, Bike. It's a different band in a way. Musically, it's worlds apart from their later surreal stuff. It's more psychedelic, more pop psychedelic, an incredible record. Obviously, David Gilmour would not join till the album after this. But the original Astronomy Domain, Lucifer Sam, Interstellar Overdrive, The Scarecrow, great psychedelic pop masterpiece. And of course, it's only grown in stature over the years. But The Gates of Dawn, Pink Floyd. 1967, and coming in number 4 on my list. Now, number 3, I have 2 copies here just to show you. When this came out, Wish You Were Here, it came in this dark cellophane wrapper. And of course, we all know this great cover. Now, a lot of people think this is their best cover art. I don't, but I do like it quite a bit. This is a reissue copy, In Flames. Again, another great Hypnosis cover. I remember driving on a camping trip when this album came out with my girlfriend at the time, and with a cassette of this. And the acoustic guitar on this is a beautiful, I mean, all their albums are beautifully recorded, but there's a certain specific sound of intense guitar sound they get on this record, which I just really love. Acoustic guitar sound I really like. And there's a interesting little tidbit that I didn't know right away for several years after this record came out. The opening track on side 2 is Welcome to the Machine, and I didn't realize that Roy Harper was the lead vocalist on that, not any member of Pink Floyd. I think they tried versions with Roger Waters and with David Gilmour, and Roy Harper, the great Roy Harper, does an incredible version, incredible vocal on that. But Shut On You Crazy Diamond, obviously it's sort of biographical about Syd Barrett, and Syd Barrett actually shows up in the studio unrecognizable while they were recording this record. So really great record. Wish You Were Here, my number 3 in my top rankings of Pink Floyd records. You know, there you go. So we're down to 2 records. Once I show you the next one, you're gonna know what number 1 is. And number 1, well, let's just go with it here. Echoes, Metal, number 2. This record is personally an important record for a lot of reasons. Echo is an important song in my life. Beautiful, beautiful record. One of These Days, a great, intense, powerful opening piece. Fearless, Saint-Tropez, a beautiful kind of, again, pleasant folk song written by Roger Waters. I mean, he was doing some really cool introspective stuff at this period that I really, really like. Great record, Metal. Important record, I think. A transitional record for Pink Floyd as well. But Echoes is one of the great, elongated, you know, I'm not even going to call them a prog band. They're more of a space light prog. And I don't mean light taking away from the lightness of the band, because they're not that by any means. But they don't have, again, I've been accused of dumping on prog. I actually like some prog music, but I think prog is one of the few genres that's so easily mocked and so easily to make fun of. And some of the prog bands just get so over the top and almost mocking themselves. And I think what was brilliant about Pink Floyd, they never really did that. They didn't quite go in that syncopated direction. So they were more spiritual, spacey in a psychedelic way. They got more psychedelia than they do on the prog side, but they're in that kind of, you know, they cross over in that genre, and I've certainly put that in that genre of prog occasionally, although, you know, I don't really think that they're a prog band per se. But this album to me means the world, and I play this record frequently. Number 2. Now, number 1 is the obvious choice. And I almost didn't include this as number 1 because it's the obvious choice. Dark Side of the Moon, 1973. I was trying to take this, again, I grew up with this record. Now, the first time I saw Pink Floyd was about 5 or 6 months before this record came out at Winterland in San Francisco. And I love Pink Floyd because of those early albums that I showed you. Aside from the first album, I knew all their music really well. So I was so excited to see Pink Floyd in the spring, I believe, of 1973 at Winterland. They performed Echoes, again, a song that would become very important to me. They performed the entire Dark Side of the Moon. And this was, again, 5 to 6 months before the album came out, so none of us had ever heard it. And it was one of the most amazing live performances I'd ever seen, with the sound effects and the gongs, and it wasn't one of their big giant shows. Again, just to express scale, Winterland holds about 5,000 people. It was probably sold out, maybe 4,500 people, give or take. And it was an incredible show. Loud, but not so loud that you couldn't hear the subtleties of the musicians. just the four of them on stage, no supplemental singers or musicians like they would have in later tours like The Wall and of course Beyond. I never saw them after the 70s. So, you know, concerts like this became this whole big, even massive production. Of course, The Wall was massive, as was the Animals tour. But this is a perfect record. Of course, it's one of the biggest selling records of all time. It was on the Billboard charts longer than pretty much any other album for like 10, 20 years or something. I'm not a big fan of this cover, although it suits this. It's simplistic, again, by Hypnosis. I think it's their least interesting cover, but graphically it works for the material. And if we can all step back from how many times, thousands of times, I've probably heard this record and how big it's become and how culturally significant it's become, if we can try to separate that. And I know it's really hard for a lot of us of our generation and even the new generations, because everyone gets a turntable or gets a CD player, and the first two albums they want are Abbey Road and maybe Dark Side of the Moon. So it is a very important record, but it holds up. I won't play this for 10 years. There's times I didn't play this for 10 or 15 years, and I put it on and I'm still in awe of how good it is, you know? I mean, the two posters inside, the green pyramids, the poster of the bands performing live. I had that up in my room when I was, you know, when this came out in 1973, when I was, 19 years old, 18 years old. It's, to me, a perfect record. No filler, a great headphone record. I had my headphones and I would listen to this quite a bit in my bedroom when I was a kid growing up. An important record. It had to be number one in this, you know, and anybody who doesn't put this at number one, I think, is doing it just for the sake of saying, oh, Dark Side of the Moon, too popular, too big. This is the one. All those records before and after lead up and come back to this record. This was the turning point. After this, I mean, how do you follow up this record? It was so huge. You put out Wish You Were Here. Great record, wonderful record. It's not this record. So, curious your thoughts on my take on it. Again, my take. Let's hear your take. For good or for evil. Thanks for watching, and Mazzy loves you a lot.